Russia is supposed to be a guarantor of the removal of chemical weapons from Syria. Think about that. Russia is supposed to have removed all the chemical weapons from Syria. But obviously, that has not happened, as innocent Syrians continue to be murdered in chemical attacks.
Pentagon officials are now investigating Russia's involvement in the chemical attack. President Putin's spokesman says Friday that the missile strikes significantly damaged Russian-American relations, saying President Putin considers the U.S. airstrikes against Syria an aggression against a sovereign country violating the norms of international law. Next week, the Trump administration is scheduled to have its first face-to-face meeting with Vladimir Putin when Secretary of State Rex Tillerson travels to Russia after Thursday's missile strikes. Rex Tillerson said, clearly Russia has failed in its responsibility to deliver on that commitment from 2013, so either Russia has been complicit or Russia has been simply incompetent in its ability to deliver on its end of that agreement. Joining us now, Tom Nichols, foreign policy expert who is a professor at the U.S. Naval War College and the author of The Death of Expertise. And also with us from Moscow, David Filipov, Moscow bureau chief for The Washington Post. David, what do you suppose is the likelihood that President Assad would have launched a chemical attack without Vladimir Putin's knowledge or approval?
Well, there's always the theory that President Assad doesn't want any peace agreement, he wants to win the war outright. President Putin has been trying to broker a peace deal that brings in Turkey, Iran, because it makes Russia have a higher profile. From that point of view, what Assad did is a complete embarrassment to Putin, and it puts Putin in a horrible spot. Now he's the guy backing the pariah. So I could totally imagine Assad being who he is, the pariah, pulling this off, and Putin being as shocked as anybody about it. Now he's in a position, do I back that guy, or do I stand down from my position as the regional peace broker? It's terrible for Putin.
And what would be, in that scenario, what would be Putin's choice?
Well, he's just said we're going to turn off the line of communication that prevents, air confrontations between Russian and U.S. aircraft. So there's that route, which how do we know that ends up, with somebody not shooting somebody down? Or there's the route of, next week when Secretary of State Tillerson comes in here saying, we've got to back off of Assad and back off our support, come to some sort of agreement with the international community and condemn this. I don't know. I mean, everything we've ever talked about with Putin and Trump is what's going to happen when there's a military confrontation between these two, disruptors in chief, and we're about to find that out. Seems to me that it's hard for Putin to back away from his guy at this point.
Tom Nichols, Vladimir Putin is Assad's most important sponsor. Without Putin, there is no future for Assad. Putin has guaranteed the removal of chemical weapons. Then Assad uses chemical weapons. Would he use those chemical weapons, given all of that, and given Putin's direct responsibility on those chemical weapons, would he have used those without checking with Vladimir Putin first and saying, I have this in mind?
It's quite possible. I mean, the Russian military in Syria can't keep tabs on Bashar Assad all day long. Assad runs his own country, he runs his own military. He doesn't have to go all the way to the Kremlin for permission to do bad things. And as David just said, he's now put Putin in a terrible position. Putin's a mafia guy. He's a mob boss, and one of his underlings just made him look really bad. So it may well be that Putin has decided that at least this once, because his guy did this thing against the boss's interest, that he's got to take a beating, but maybe not repeated beatings, which is why Putin may have threatened to turn off the deconfliction channel.
And David, on Vladimir Putin's statement today, that written statement, act of aggression, international law, it didn't sound like there was any really powerful language in that.
Exactly. It's as much as anyone could have said without actually offering anything aggressive and without actually threatening to do anything. Even turning off that line, that deconflicting line, doesn't amount to aggression. It's only aggression if you decide to shoot things down. And let's not forget, there's another player in here. Assad is not alone with Russia. It's got Iran. Iran is Assad's ally, and Iran really wants to win that war and doesn't want other people involved in it either. So one of the things that Putin's thinking about is, hey, I had this big deal with Iran and Turkey. What's going on here? I got to be in charge of that. So when Putin lashes out and all his people lash out, tune that out and look at it. What exactly is he doing that he wasn't doing yesterday? And there's not that much.
Yeah. Tom Nichols, to that point, what is Vladimir Putin's next move in this situation?
Well, he has to decide just how much trouble Assad's worth. In a sense, now he's backed into a corner. He can't leave Assad out in the cold now that the Americans have struck him. But he's got a troublesome client, and a client who clearly has an interest in this different from Russia's, who has other friends like Iran. And so I think the really interesting question about what develops next is, yes, the Trump-Putin relationship is going to be interesting to see what happens next, but also the Putin-Assad relationship, because Assad just gave him a lot more of a headache than Putin needed, and really that he probably thinks that Assad merits.
And David, the Trump administration tonight is getting out the word that this is a one-time event. They have no plans for any further actions involving Syria. That's the breaking news, actually, that's coming in while we've been speaking, that senators who've been briefed on the administration's plans have just revealed that the Trump administration has no follow-up in a plan for this at all. So when Vladimir Putin looks at that and says, they coordinated with us ahead of time so that we could get everybody out of any danger at that airfield. They made sure they didn't destroy the airfield. They were, in effect, as gentle as they could be with a missile strike. And Vladimir Putin gets the word tonight that that's it, that's the end. Donald Trump is finished. How does Putin react to that?
Well, there's a possibility that Putin was never going to back down anyway because he's Vladimir Putin. But I mean, letting them know about the rockets was part of the procedure they would have had with the deconflicting line. And it also, by the way, saved Putin from the possible embarrassment that let's say they try to shoot down 59 Tomahawks and they can't do it. Those systems wouldn't have been able to take out all those missiles. You would have had a situation there where everybody's firing at each other and it would have looked really bad for everyone. But I see where you're going with this, and there's definitely a possibility that the same way that Putin really didn't say anything aggressive today, it's also true that that gesture really didn't do a whole lot of damage. It's two actors there not really doing a whole lot while making it look really, really, striking. So what's really up is what are we going to see next week when Secretary of State Tillerson comes? How are they going to be talking to each other? Are they talking about solving a problem? Are they talking about deconflicting? Are they talking about the Third World War? I think it's none of those things. I think it's about how do we go into something that we can kind of move forward and sell everybody on the idea.
David Filipov, thank you very much for joining us from Moscow tonight. And Tom Nichols, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.